Welcome to In the Black, where we celebrate stories of transformation, resilience, and rising into the life you were meant to live. I'm your host, Araceli, and this space was created to amplify voices often overlooked. Women who've come through the fire with wisdom, strength, and heart. Whether you're here for healing, clarity, or just good conversation, you belong here. Let's get into it. On the In the Black podcast, we usually sit with women who have walked through deep trauma and found their way to transformation and purpose. Today's episode takes us into a different but just as powerful journey. Our guest, Heidi Chance, spent over 27 years in law enforcement, much of it working undercover in some of the darkest corners of society, facing the reality of sex trafficking head on. That work was not just about long nights and dangerous investigations. It was about confronting trauma in real time, carrying the weight of what she witnessed, and choosing to transform that burden into purpose. Heidi's career led to landmark cases, including one that resulted in a trafficker being sentenced to 493.5 years in prison for 101 child sex trafficking charges. She's been featured in the PBS Frontline documentary Sex Trafficking in America, contributes to BRAINZ Magazine, and through her platform, A Chance for Awareness. She trains both law enforcement and everyday people on how to recognize and fight trafficking. She's also the author of Talk to Them, navigating difficult conversations with youth in the digital age, equipping parents and mentors to protect the next generation. This conversation is about more than crime, it's about humanity, resilience, and finding purpose in the fight to protect the most vulnerable. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. That was a mouthful of amazing things that you are doing. Moving aside from the introduction, who is Heidi?
Yeah.
So take us away with that.
Yeah. So I am a wife, a mother, a daughter, all of those things as well. Sometimes when you hear, oh, it's a police officer, people have a certain impression of police officers, and they're, humanizing a police officer is a little bit difficult for people to wrap their head around. So I'm just like everyone else, actually.
I love that. Okay, so our first question. You've had an incredible career in law enforcement. What drew you specifically to focus on human sex trafficking?
Yeah, so I spent my career in Phoenix Police Department, and I started off in patrol. And after a couple of years, I decided to have a family and become a mother. And so I needed to switch from patrol because I knew that I was going to have a newborn baby and I would want to breastfeed. And you really can't do that in uniform with a bulletproof vest in a patrol car driving around from call to call, where you're going to go to pump or anything like that. So I went to a position called School Resource Officer, and I blinked and 6 years went by. And I spent a lot of my time there at the school every day. It was a sixth, seventh, and eighth grade age school. And one day, because we don't get to take the police car home, unfortunately, I was returning the keys at the police station, and I passed an area of the police station, which is the juvenile holding area, where we try and keep kids who might be in trouble away from adults and keep them separate and not exposed to anything that might be going on with adults at the precinct. So in walking past this certain area, there's a little window and a door, and I noticed a girl sitting in there, and I recognized her because she was one of the students from the school that I was at. On that day, she was 16. I remember her when she was 14. And she saw me, and I opened the door and I asked her, "Hey, why are you in trouble?" And she looked up at me and said, "Hey, I'm in trouble with my boyfriend because I got arrested for prostitution." And I was blown away by that. I was, I'd been a cop for a long time by then, 7, 8 years, and I knew prostitution was a crime. The area that I worked in patrol was mostly residential, so we didn't have that much of an issue with it as far as the street prostitution. But I just was shocked that a kid could get involved in prostitution and be so matter of fact as far as the way that she described what was going on, and obviously desensitized and grown up beyond her years at that time, that she shouldn't be experiencing those things. And it really got to me. And so, uniquely at that time, I was asked to start, they were borrowing females from patrol to pose as prostitutes on the side of the road. And I got asked to do that. And so I jumped on that opportunity, and I fell in love with the idea of targeting sex buyers and traffickers, the people who are contributing to this problem in the first place. I can tell you that after that happened, I got an opportunity to test for a position with the unit. It was called VICE back then. It's now called Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit. And when I first got to that unit, I got the position. They were only allowed one female position for each squad, because at that time we were arresting prostitutes all day long, and you need male undercovers to arrest prostitutes. And then a shift happened, and I was able to witness this shift where we realized some of these people might actually not be willing participants in this activity. They might be forced into doing this. Who's the people forcing them to do these things? That would be the traffickers and the sex buyers. And now I'm happy to say those two squads are women outweighing the men, because you need female undercovers to target sex buyers and traffickers. So female undercovers are the front lines in this fight. The male detectives, their purpose was at the time to, arrest prostitutes, because that was at the time the way that we handled this crime. And so we've evolved in looking at the bigger picture as to why these people are in this position and why they're on the streets and why are they selling themselves, but they're really not selling themselves. It's someone else selling them. And that's where we made this realization, law enforcement in general. And I can tell you across the United States, there are efforts to really change our reaction to and a response to this problem and target the true people who are contributing to it, which is the sex traffickers and the buyers. Because this is a crime that involves supply and demand. The supply is the traffickers supplying the victims, and the demand are the sex buyers, the people buying people every day, and predominantly that is men. I haven't yet arrested a female for buying a prostitute before, ever, in my career, nor have I met anyone else who has. Predominantly men purchasing people for sex, and that's driving the demand for this problem. So you need female undercovers to target those people.
The people who go in and arrest are the females as well, or do you get help from the men?
Yeah, so sometimes, and here's where it is important to still use male undercovers, is we have individuals, victims, that don't realize they're a victim. They're in love with their trafficker. They are brainwashed into believing all of the false promises that this person has promised them. And they're participating in this crime under a delusion, or maybe it's best to define the whole thing. Human trafficking is defined as sexual exploitation or labor trafficking, which both of them are under human trafficking, forced sex or forced labor. But for both of those crimes, you have to have the elements of force, fraud, or coercion going on. So force is pretty self-explanatory. That's some kind of violent incident involving visible sign of injury, something we can see. The fraud and the coercion are harder to explain, harder to prove, and harder to recognize is going on. The fraud is this false promise that I'm talking about, where these traffickers are so manipulative that they're very skilled at creating this belief in a person that I'm going to get you a car, I'm going to get you an apartment, I'm going to get you to beauty school, I'm going to take care of you, we're going to live this amazing life, or you're going to get to go travel, I'm going to buy you all the things that you want, you just have to do this. And they're super skilled at creating a situation where a victim really believes all those things are going to happen for them. And then the coercion are the threats. I say that a pimp, which is a trafficker, they're one and the same. That's just two different words describing the same person with the same behavior. A pimp is the most reliable person you will ever meet. If they say they're going to beat you up, they're going to beat you up. If they say they're going to get you in the car, and depending on how mad they are at you, they're going to shoot up your mom's house, kicking and screaming. They're going to stuff you in the car. They're going to drive you to your mom's house, and they're going to point a gun at your mom's house because they need their victims to believe what I say is going to happen. Otherwise, these victims wouldn't stay in the situation they're in. So it's very real, the coercion that these victims are facing. They know outcomes of if they do not do what they're supposed to do for this trafficker. So all of that to say, you do need male undercover detectives to help attempt to rescue people who are under these delusions, who are under the force, fraud, or coercion, and get them out of the situation they're in. And so when we do operations, having male undercovers call them on their prostitution ad or pull up on the side of the road where they're walking and engage with them, that is for the purpose of an opportunity for us to detain them, identify them, and give them a way out. And that way out is we have a victim advocate assigned to our unit now who has the backline phone number to shelters, to other resources, funding for a flight home, a bus ticket, ways to help this person actually get out of this situation they're in, because that's the whole part of trafficking that people don't realize is victims feel trapped. They feel helpless. They feel stuck in this situation with no way out. They may have gone to jail already before in the past, have a criminal history record, may be addicted to drugs, all kinds of circumstances as to why they feel they cannot leave this situation. And we're trying to actually help people now and get them out of the situation. And that's where it's hard to repair that relationship and that thought process because pimps are telling them the cops are just going to arrest you. And they're not half wrong because that's what we were doing before.
And I'm sorry, how long did you say? How soon did that change, or how long ago did that change?
Well, I went into working sex trafficking starting in 2007 ish, 2008. And then I would say maybe in 2014, 2015, we started actually working this problem in a different way and reacting to it differently. So it's been a long time that we were arresting people instead of trying to help them. So we have to fall on
Wow.
the sword about that. But yeah.
So I'm gonna pivot here a little bit
Yeah.
and go down a rabbit hole, maybe. There's this girl that I used to know in Springfield, Missouri. She moved to Arizona and she had a marking on her car. She posted it on Facebook. Everybody kind of saw it. And she's like, "What is this mark?" I went to the grocery store, came back out. Now my car is marked. I rubbed it off. And then people were like, "That's sex trafficking." Are there certain symbols that you guys know to be true that are out there? Do they change them all the time? If that's the case, do people report it often? What can you say about that?
Yeah, so I've heard about that incident as well, and also other people doing TikToks filming, this frantic. I had a shopping cart placed directly next to my driver's door. Am I being set up for human trafficking? I've never had a case involving a victim who was trafficked that way. Not to say that they're not being set up for some other crime. It could be a carjacking, it could be a sexual assault, it could be a robbery of some kind. But I've never had a victim disclose that that's how this happened to them. Same with everyone's myth that they think that it's only an abduction, like what's shown on movies like Taken. This idea of an abduction could happen, definitely could, but it isn't the way it happens most often. That's like a small percentage of how this happens. The way that this happens is traffickers are very skilled at targeting individuals and their vulnerabilities, whether it's you are out on the streets and you look like you're down on your luck and they come up to you and they spark a conversation with you and exchange information, and then they invest time in getting to know you, learning personal information about you, all of the things that they can flip around and use against you later when they threaten you. And again, that false promises, that all that conversation is something that takes a little bit of time. Now, it is definitely someone's vulnerability that they're looking for, whether it's like that case that you had highlighted, the 500-year sentence almost. That case, I had 7 victims. One of the females in that investigation was in her 40s. She was a Department of Corrections officer working at the prison, lost her job, that's her vulnerability, became employed at a strip club, and then met the trafficker at the strip club, and then entered the life of prostitution. Never had done this before, in her 40s. Same case, 19-year-old up at Northern Arizona University. Her mom is a nurse. She's from Scottsdale, well-off family. It's not like they had, been living in a poor area of town or anything like that, or struggling financially. Well-off family. Mom's a nurse. She's up at NAU. She's on Craigslist, and for whatever reason, she engages in a conversation with a guy that has this opportunity to take modeling pictures of her. She may have been feeling low self-esteem or something that day. She goes ahead and meets with this guy. He does the pictures, and then he has sex with her, and then he introduces her to the pimp, and then she becomes a prostitute out of a brothel that he was running out of his house. And at 19 years old, she gets heavily into heroin, a super addictive issue for her. And unfortunately, she made some other mistakes and committed some other crimes, and she went to prison at 19 years, or well, around 2022. But her whole life, my point, was going one direction, and then because of this circumstance, went a whole other direction. So with all of that, it is the person's vulnerability that a trafficker can exploit. A kid on the side of the road that ran away from home, and a trafficker approaches them. Their vulnerability is they're thinking, well, where am I going to stay tonight? How am I going to get food? This person's offering a place to stay, and then I feel indebted to them. And then now they're suggesting that I do these things. I'm only going to do this for a little while. But really, a little while is never a little while, and these traffickers get a hold of them and then create this situation where they learn things about them and threaten them, and that's how this all happens.
Wow. Okay, so basically, the little $100 bill, they're like, "Oh, it could be laced with, because it's out of cardboard." So that could be just like a robbery or something. It's not actually sex trafficking.
Yeah, because sex trafficking is the commercial sexual exploitation of a person, and the commercial part of it is prostitution. It is a sex act in exchange for some item of value, some form of compensation. So it is, it could be money, it could be buy my hotel room for tonight, it could be drugs, but it is that exchange. That is the definition of sex trafficking. Nowhere in there is a shopping cart or a sticker on a car window. It is the actual action of this person engaging in sex acts in exchange for compensation. That is sex trafficking.
How can people who are so vulnerable in that moment save themselves? Is
Yeah,
there any advice for that?
yeah. So recognizing what's really happening here, recognizing how traffickers use things to exploit them. We live in a world right now where we share what we eat for breakfast on social media. We share way too much. And especially for kids who have this perception of, YouTube University told me that if I have 100,000 subscribers on my TikTok or my Instagram, that I'm going to start making money magically. And kids think that that's an outcome that they can have, so they leave their profiles open to the public. And social media and apps and the games, that's how this is happening as well. Besides the opportunities that traffickers would take in person out on the side of the road, traffickers that I've met and put away, literally, and I know all of this because as an undercover, I've engaged in conversations with them. They never know who you're talking to. I'm catfishing them. And I'm speaking to them on these social media platforms, and I've done a warrant for our conversation, and I've seen where the message that was sent to me was sent to hundreds of other profiles all day long, and they're just sitting on their butt actively sending out this message, casting this fishing line, trying to see who's going to take the bait, and engage back with them. And unfortunately, with these open profiles, kids get engaging messages all day long from not only traffickers, but other child predators and everything else, strangers. And unfortunately, unless we arm them with the information, they're not going to know it's happening until it's too late and they're convinced to go meet this person. And then they leave with them, and then the rest is history as far as, you know, these traffickers are very good at taking them to another state, taking them away from the familiar, limiting their access to family and friends so they can't make a phone call. No one remembers their phone number anymore. They don't have it memorized. So if your phone is lost or taken from you, what are you going to do? And if you're a kid, you don't have ID. It's not like you can hop on a plane and get home or on a bus or something. So very dangerous. That's why I wrote my book, because I want to arm parents with the information of how this happens.
How big is this? How do they recruit people to do such evil things?
Yeah. So if you were to Google how bad is trafficking in the United States, you might see a number 27 million to 37 million victims out there. Um, I would tell you we have no idea how many victims are out there because they're still silent. They haven't come forward. We can only base our number on the ones that we've identified, which is less than 1%. So we have victims that are still believing, like I said, all those promises, still believing in this lifestyle. And again, they're very manipulative. So they think they're in love with this trafficker. They think that they're in a relationship with them. And, it's one of those things where parents really need to understand it is something to be concerned about. It, amongst all the other things like sextortion, luring a minor, all of those things, what it boils down to is their access to our kids, access to potential victims, and in my mind, that comes from social media, that comes from the internet and the apps and the games. And there's things we can do to prevent those things from happening.
Are you allowed to talk about the process of the females going undercover? And I mean, I would think that you'd be a little scared
Yeah.
because anything can go south really quick. Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah. So when I say going undercover, there's several different things that I've done in my career. Um, I say that I have a unique lived experience of being solicited by thousands of sex buyers over the years, because I'm going on 16 years investigating this crime now. I stand on the side of the road, and basically, these sex buyers know certain street locations in major cities where prostitutes walk and would be. It's something you can Google, and they go to those areas. And it is almost like bees swarming, where I might stop and talk to one person at the side of their vehicle, and I'm observing several waiting to see if I'm going to go with that person or if they can have an opportunity to talk to me. It's overwhelmingly bad. That's the street prostitution. And then online, if you've ever heard of Backpage.com, so Backpage.com used to be like the classifieds for sex trafficking ads, prostitution ads. The FBI took out Backpage because we had to do something to eliminate a platform that would sell people. And unfortunately, all of these other websites popped up after we took out Backpage, and a lot of these other websites are not in the United States, so we really don't have authority over taking them out or, imposing fines or holding them accountable for what they're doing. And now you can visit one of these websites and contact a female that's advertised. I think a lot of this is going on because of platforms like OnlyFans and Patreon and these platforms that provide pornography in the palm of your hand. And I feel that men in general are viewing those things on a regular basis. And unfortunately, they get to the point where they act out in real life because it's no longer satisfying to them, the palm of your hand and the viewing, and they want to act it out. And that's where they contact an individual advertised on these prostitution websites and then go and engage with them. And some of the people advertised on these websites are kids. We don't know it because the websites appear or play like they're going to, um, not be participating in that activity. You have to be 18 to enter, but anyone could just push the button and say they're 18 and lie, and then you can purchase people on there, and we don't know that they're 18 as well. You can steal pictures, you can just post whatever other people are posting, and then behind the scenes in real life, it's a kid that's being advertised. So, in doing undercover work, I have posted prostitution ads for myself and my fellow female officers posing as prostitutes online. I've engaged with sex buyers coming into our hotel room, soliciting us for sex, and then we arrest them. And then I've had pimps also come and try and recruit and groom us in person out on the streets and in hotels.
So you don't really get taken back to their location. You always keep it your location and you keep the environment in control.
There are things that we do, obviously, to protect the officers. Yeah, absolutely. But there are some times where we're going to an unknown location and we control as much as we can. Definitely dangerous, for sure.
So, curious question again. In the foster system, is that a good way? I guess it's not a good way, but is that a way of sex traffickers to get a hold of young kids as well? Or is that just something, again, that's just a myth? All these kids that go missing, could that be related to also them being in the sex trafficking world? Is that stuff that you guys do know or?
Yeah, so as far as a person that's in foster care, they don't have parents, they don't have, maybe a guardian. Those are vulnerabilities. And if it boils down to what I had said before, where traffickers are skilled at looking for people with vulnerabilities, for sure they're going to target kids that are in child welfare or in foster care. What we have found is prior to 2019, I think, we had noticed that if I were to conduct an operation and we rescued a juvenile and they happened to be in the child welfare system, prior to 2019, we would call up Department of Child Safety, Child Protective Services. Hey, we have this kid. I got to go bust down the doors and get the bad guy. Here you go. And we found that in doing that, these social workers call up a random group home. Hey, do you have an available bed? Cool, I'm going to bring this child over. And they take them to this random group home. And in that group home, you have kids that have never heard that you could make $80 in 5 minutes for oral sex before. And then we are introducing this child into that group home who also is in love with their trafficker and is loyal to their trafficker and wants to get back to them because this unfortunate brainwashing going on. And they're recruiting out of that group home. And now you've got 2 or 3 kids that run away and go to this trafficker. And so we were causing this problem of a revolving door of kids being recruited out of group homes and out of foster care. So to stop all of that, we created a protocol, which is basically a system where we hold these kids for a longer period of time so that Department of Child Safety can find better placement that's actually for sex trafficking victims, that has the resources already set up, the counseling, the medical attention they might need, all of those things already set up. And then we are the transportation taking them to that placement so that they get there safely and they can start getting resources right away. And they remain in that placement with other kids that unfortunately have had this happen to them. And so we're not kind of spreading this information to kids that have never been exposed to that before. And so since doing that, we've made amazing changes to the outcome of these children going back to their trafficker and more kids getting involved in this. So I think that is a really good answer to this problem as far as our youth continuing on in it. And we're actually seeing results of them not going back to that activity and getting the help that they would need.
That is amazing that you guys are evolving
Yeah.
and, seeing the misses and help and change the course of some lives. Going back to that, is there a certain female or person that said, "Hey, let's change the way"?
Yeah, I don't think it was one person back then, just in general. I think what it was is there was an investigation involving a child that was held in a dog crate. And I think that even made national news, and she was on Dr. Phil and everything, her and her mom. But basically, she was out at a park, and a 19-year-old male and an 18-year-old female. It was a couple, and it was young people as well, male and female. Convinced her to go with them to their apartment, and then they held her in that apartment. And during the time that she was an outstanding runaway, her mom had reported her as a runaway. Um, Basically, they had held her in a dog crate to keep her at the apartment, and men would come there to have sex with her. So that was kind of like the catalyst, at least for Phoenix Police Department's mindset of, wait a minute, that is absolutely the definition of force, fraud, and coercion, and we need to start looking at how they're being found and exploited by who. And those who's are the traffickers, the pimps. And so that's where this shift kind of happened.
Is it one, I don't even know the correct word, big corporation that is just like you report to the top guy and then there's all these people that work for this business, or was that a separate incident?
Yeah. So a lot of people think that sex trafficking is kind of like a big, huge organized thing. And some of it is. There's two types of sex trafficking in my experience. You have organized trafficking, which is the cartels and the massage parlors and, the international trafficking rings that we've heard about in the news. And then you have individuals trafficking other individuals. And that's your pimps that these are pimps also, but the word is typically, that's why it's confusing with the word pimp versus trafficker. They are the same person doing the same behavior, committing the same crime. It's just happening in a different way. The more organized stuff is where we can make a direct connection to it happening out of the United States, and maybe there's an upper echelon of people in another country. What I'm talking about, lots of my experience comes from pimps, traffickers that, in my experience, seems to be a generational issue where they are related to someone else that was a pimp before, and they kind of grew up with this behavior, or their mom was a prostitute, those kind of things. So that's kind of a learned thing. I've had lots of investigations that I've done where it is a pimp that the whole family knows that that's what they're doing. Sometimes they're financially benefiting off of it, and I've arrested several pimps' family members for interfering with my investigation, intimidating witnesses, just trying to destroy evidence, also committing crimes. So it is definitely confusing because you hear about in the news more of the organized pimping, but if you were to go to Vegas, you're going to see the individual pimps who sometimes work together, sometimes they're independent of each other. And that's another dynamic that we've noticed is over the period of time that I've been working this crime, they used to be territorial and they would shoot each other over a corner, and very territorial over where they're getting their money and who's around. And now they're kind of linking up together. They're traveling together. They're doing counter surveillance for each other. They're managing each other's victims. They are working together more. And so that's where some of the confusion probably comes from as far as the uh, linking up and working together.
Are there more states that are more known for that? Like you said, Vegas, and I hear Arizona is high trafficking. I hear Tampa, Florida is high as well. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So there are states that have really good weather, like Arizona or Nevada, where we don't have a lot of storms, we don't have a lot of snow. People are able to be outside more. And then obviously the tourist draw. So traffickers aren't dumb. They're not. They're going to take their victims to where the buyers are going to be. And buyers go to places like Vegas. Buyers attend conferences in Vegas. Buyers go to events like the NASCAR, the car race that was going on there. Arizona, we've hosted Super Bowl, what, 3 times now? Buyers, predominantly men, attend Super Bowl. Men attend the golf tournaments. Men attend the race car driving events. It's places where a lot of men will be. I have had buyers where I've seen in their computer history search where military bases are. Military bases are predominantly men. Yes, there's women in the military. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they're researching places where a lot of men will be because they want to bring their victims to where they're going to be able to make some money off of these men. And so they're traveling around following these major events. So places with those kind of events, Tampa, Florida, Arizona, Vegas, California, there are states that have good weather, those kind of events, and traffickers are going to bring their victims to those things.
So it sounds like, to me, and this sounds very, I guess, stereotypical, I was thinking more of truck drivers because you hear of those stories of they stop and pick up someone, not of somebody well off financially who is successful who will purchase these individuals. So it sounds like most of the buyers are not just truck drivers.
Well, buyers could be anyone, and that's another thing. People's perception of what these people look like um, come with top hat and a cane and a pimp cup, just like you would see on MTV back in the day, or pimp my ride, pimp my apartment, whatever. All of these things kind of glamorizing this lifestyle. That has created a perception for people. But I mean that trafficker that got the almost 500 years. He was a white guy in his 60s, but he had been doing horrible things to women for a long time. And it's almost like a cult thing that he was involved in. But it could be anyone, is my point. I've arrested female traffickers. So it could be anyone, any demographic as well. So that's the whole point of that makes it also scary for people is that it could be anyone and their perception of this can't be a pimp because they don't look like this certain way. We need to get over that because it could definitely be anyone. Yeah. So as a female undercover, I've arrested police officers, businessmen,
Wow.
doctors, people in nice cars, people in shitty cars, day laborers. It's a buyer could be your neighbor next door that has a family and 2 kids and is married. I mean, I've literally seen buyers take their wedding ring off, put it in the cup holder, and then solicit sex from me. So buyers could be anyone as well.
Do these doctors and lawyers, do they go after they serve, do they just go back to their normal lives or do they get their license revoked? Would that be connected? How does that work?
Yeah, so here's where we need to have awareness and compliance rules and policies be put in place at businesses where there's a zero tolerance policy because I've had, you know, we've arrested the CEO of Whole Foods. He lost his job. So there was some accountability there, held to a higher standard. Obviously, a police officer is going to lose their job. But when we're talking about buyers, right now, at least in Arizona, and I don't know the statutes in your state, but in Arizona, it's a misdemeanor to purchase a person, an adult, another adult, for sex. It's a misdemeanor. And to put it in perspective, if I arrest a prostitute, her 4th conviction in a 5-year period in Arizona is a felony, and she'll get a felony on her record and go to prison. I could arrest a buyer 15 times, and there's no felony for a buyer. So there's an imbalance and more work to still be done to hold buyers more accountable. So then that way there's some actual deterrence that you're actually going to get in trouble for this. Because a misdemeanor is a slap on the wrist. And that is why, in my opinion, this is still continuing on because there's not a strict enough punishment for buyers, because they're the ones creating the demand for this entire problem in the first place.
Do you think that would change as you guys have evolved? Do you think that would evolve eventually? Because you're right. If we keep allowing people to make the same purchases with just a slap on the wrist, there's nothing really stopping them. And I could see that as also being an addiction, so they really wouldn't stop.
Yes, absolutely. I'm hopeful that it'll change. I mean, some states are making it stricter. Arizona just passed a bill where it's a life sentence for a buyer, even not only a trafficker, but a buyer. If we find that this person picked up a girl who's a kid, it doesn't matter if she told you she's 23. It doesn't matter if she looks 23. If she's under 18, you're going to go to prison because it is now a life sentence for a buyer. So that is, but this is, again, we're talking about kids. There's not a same standard for purchasing an adult. And that's where we really need to get stricter. We need to get, more punishment for buyers, repeat offenders. I mean, I have literally stood on the side of the road and a car pulls up and I see the guy and I'm like, oh, shoot, he's going to recognize me. We arrested him last month. And then he goes and solicits sex from me because he's not thinking clearly, obviously, and didn't recognize me. And here we are arresting him again. So they repeat offend, especially because the consequences isn't that bad.
Wow, but you would think that their wives and family, like, they would lose something.
You would think so. I've had it. I've had lots of wives call and ask, "Why is my husband going to jail?" And I can't share information over the phone on an ongoing investigation, but I can tell you everything we do is public record, and you can get the copy of the police report. But there's a lot of wives who unfortunately forgive that, and it's one of those things where they really need to realize the entire contribution that that behavior is contributing to, and that this person, even if it's an adult, is being exploited, and their husband is contributing to that exploitation. So it's all about awareness. It's about conversations like we're having right now, conversations that I've had. Not just me. I mean, there's people doing awareness everywhere. But for me personally, my main mission and the reason why I created my whole achanceforawareness.com is to have that opportunity to continue awareness to the public, because I need the public to realize, this some of these myths that are coming out with people calling every crime human trafficking, but it is not, which is minimizing the severity of trafficking. And then also to have people who might participate as a juror, because I believe an informed public equals an informed jury, which equals accountability for these people. And obviously, we don't have that going on strong enough yet, because the trial that just recently happened with rapper, I guess he was a rapper. Obviously, the outcome of that was not what I expected, and that jury was obviously not informed about the dynamics of a person experiencing trauma and all the dynamics of potentially the trafficking that was possibly going on there. And that outcome was very disappointing. And I feel like that's because we still have more work to do on the awareness front.
Yeah, because you guys are doing, I mean, I'm assuming constant work and effort, and then they just get released and it's just an ongoing, I mean, it's literally they're getting enabled because they get a slap on the wrist. They just go out and do the same thing, and also not having us back you up on this. So, how has working undercover shaped your understanding of both traffickers and victims?
Well, I think I have a really good understanding of the lifestyle because of the undercover work I've done, especially the operations where I've catfish pimps. I've learned so much. I had one pimp tell me, for example, to when you get the money, to hide it in the ironing board cover. You know, the cover on an ironing board in a hotel room. I never when I've done warrants at hotels, search the ironing board cover. And now that's something I do because my pimp told me that's where to hide the money. So I think there's so much information you can get. I mean, that's just one pimp and how he chooses to do business, but it makes me want to do a better search for evidence in, a home or an apartment or a hotel room because they are savvy and ultimately the main goal is to make as much money as possible and not get caught by the police for as long as possible. So the more contact and interaction we have with them in an undercover capacity, the more we learn about their tactics and what they're doing. So it's extremely important to do those things.
Whew,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Wow.
Never thought I'd say that. I never thought
Yeah,
I'd say that.
that is because I really thought you guys tear the place. I mean, at least I'm not involved, obviously, at least from what you do see in the movies, you tear the whole place apart. So
Oh, we
you
tried.
would think,
I would never have thought, the ironing board, but
yeah.
yeah, now I
I
do.
mean, you guys take your knives and dig through the couches sometimes from what we see. I don't know if it's true, but
Ah,
yeah. Wow.
I've broken apart a toilet before where someone delayed in not answering the door. And obviously, we know they're destroying evidence. So the first thing we do is go to the toilet, and there was something in there, and it was, where we had to break open the toilet to get to the drugs that were in the bag that were trying to be flushed down the toilet. So, yeah, we do what we can to gather evidence for sure. But in a hotel room, you're thinking it's a public place. They're not going to damage the property. It's where the hotel can lock you out. Your key could not work at some point. You're going to want to have access to whatever you hid in there. So, it's, I guess that's what it is. You learn to do a better job. That's what it is. We learn something every day.
Do you think you're going to continue going undercover for as long as you can?
You know, right now I more train other law enforcement. I train female officers. I have a female undercover school for female officers, kind of passing that torch on to the next generations because, I can work undercover. It's just a lot of this right now is focused in on kids. And I cannot pose as a 16-year-old. I might be able to pose as a 30 something person, but not 16. So having female officers that look young enough to pose as juveniles is the name of the game, and that is what we're doing now to target both traffickers but also sex buyers.
So really, they don't like older women, the buyers.
Oh, not necessarily. I'm just saying that when we're trying to get them for felonies, because we're trying to actually put them in prison, we would invest a lot of work in having female officers that look young enough to look like juveniles.
Wow. What was it like being featured in the PBS Frontline documentary, Sex Trafficking in America? Now I have to go see that.
Yes, yeah, it came out in May of 2019 on Frontline PBS. It's on their website still. It says episode something, but it's really only the 154-minute documentary. But you can also watch it on YouTube. And very proud of that movie because a lot of people, their perception of human trafficking right now, it comes from movies. It comes from Taken or all these TV shows that are trying to use the buzzword human trafficking to get views, or Sound of Freedom. Did you see Sound of Freedom? I think it's on Amazon, maybe Netflix. But anyway,
I
Sound of Freedom
think
came out.
so.
Yeah, that came out in 23, 24 recently. And that movie is a great movie. It's got people talking about human trafficking. It's got a little bit of drama going on with, the people who it was based off of. None of that matters to me. What matters to me is that people are at least thinking about trafficking. But the problem is with that movie is they're thinking, and if they viewed it, that it's happening in another country because that's what that movie focuses on. It's not in the United States. It's a great depiction of international trafficking, but it does not really show you what's happening here domestically in the United States and how it's happening. And that's what Sex Trafficking in America uh, titled very well, that actually shows you what's going on domestically in America right now, going on today. And it's happening on the streets and in hotels and to our kids. And so that movie followed the female detectives, because originally it was going to be about the female detectives fighting for female victims, but it turned into much more than that when a juvenile was rescued, and it follows her case all the way through to the end. That's why it took 3 years to conclude, because they continue trying to get more footage of our undercover operations and things we were doing. But really, it was about that juvenile and her case and the three traffickers that she was kind of traded between, and the conclusion of them being held accountable. So it's a really good movie to show the undercover work we're doing, but also how kids are getting involved in this.
Wow.
Okay.
Through a chance for awareness, you train law enforcement and communities. What are some of the most effective tools or strategies you teach?
Yeah. So in my business, like I said, the community awareness is super important, because I'm trying to reach audiences of um, potential buyers, as well as people who in general would be serving on that jury. And I feel like every time I go and present, I'm seeing their faces, and I'm seeing the men in the room feel guilty about that activity. And hopefully I'm creating a change in their minds of, if they've done it before in the past, they won't do it again. And that's a huge part of my community awareness, because I'm speaking to anyone who will have me. I'm applying to conferences. Lots of these conferences, their theme for their conference has nothing to do with human trafficking. It might be like a conference for food employees, food handler employees, but I'm trying to get there because I'm trying to reach potential jurors and potential people who might be contributing to the problem of sex trafficking. And it really, and hopefully platforms like this help me expand this idea that I'm not a motivational speaker at all. I'm an informational speaker, but I am presenting on something that needs to be talked about, needs to be in the minds of businesses where they create policy, where number one, and I've arrested people where literally they're driving their company car, they're on the clock, they're on their lunch hour or on their way into work or during their work day, and they're soliciting prostitution, and they're getting a hand job for 5 to 10 minutes and then going on to work or going on about their day. And that should be seen as not okay. Using the company computer to call a prostitution ad or to search on these prostitution ads. I mean, all of these things, this is happening under their noses of businesses and companies where their employees are conducting this activity and this behavior. And I'm trying to inspire companies to create policies, create awareness and consequences for their employees that participate in that kind of activity. So that's why I feel like going anywhere I can to present this message is extremely important for all of those purposes. So that is why I'm so passionate about my community awareness for my part of my mission. And then my law enforcement mission obviously is passing that torch on to female officers, but also there is an issue where law enforcement, for example, back in 1996, when I was in the police academy, I didn't have a class on human trafficking. I was never trained about human trafficking until I went to the vice unit, years and years and years later. So we have cops out there that have never been trained on anything but looking for drug dealers and gangsters. And the pimps know it. I actually have a Facebook Live video that I caught of a pimp bragging, um, videoing himself right next to 5 patrol cars who are dealing with whatever they're dealing with, but he's bragging to his audience that he's not seen. And he's not half wrong, because we aren't training law enforcement to see them and what to look for and how to recognize it on calls that we respond to every day. So training law enforcement on recognizing and responding to this problem is also something I do. And I've traveled internationally now. I've gone to Mexico, all over the United States. And to continue to do that is is really an honor to pass that information on to officers so that I can arm them with the information too of all this going on that they might not actually be aware of, or might be aware of but not realize it's that big of a problem in their small town. So
Are they also training others to travel and help and train police officers, or is this just on you?
no, there are several people out there that had similar careers to mine that are also doing the same thing. But to my knowledge, I'm the only female out there doing it.
Wow. So how could one join you if they wanted to help?
Yeah, so not even just join me, but help with the problem of trafficking in general without being a vigilante, because you have some people that are out there doing their own little child predator operations for TikTok views and Instagram views, and they're, engaging with a buyer or a child predator, and then they're meeting up with them, and then they're calling the cops after and saying, "Here, take this, arrest this person." That doesn't work. We can't do it. Just like if you see a person speeding on the side of the road and you call in this speeding person, if they slow down when I show up and I haven't observed them, I can't arrest them. I can't give them a citation. I have to observe this crime. So I have to observe or be a part of this person uh, conducting a child predator operation. Basically, it has to be like in some states like Arizona, if it's an undercover chat, it has to be a sworn police officer doing that chat. Then we can know that it was someone that's going to testify. I'm going to testify in court. It's going to be handling of evidence correctly. There's going to be no entrapment issues. All of these circumstances that people don't think about when they do their own little operations and try and get these people. Not that that's bad that they're doing that. We do need these people to fear that they could get caught. It's just, you can't just hand it off to us, do the sexy fun stuff, hand it off to us and say, here you go, dump truck, take this and arrest this person. It just doesn't work that way. We're not going to be able to prosecute them. And all of this is a waste. And those people are starting to sue these influencers. And they're also dangerous. We had one influencer got shot in the head and murdered by the person they were trying to get the cops to come get. So that's not the right way to do it. This is my long tangent on that. The right way to do it is to be a good witness, to learn about what human trafficking really is, so that you can recognize it happening in front of you, happening to someone that you might know, someone that you might not know where to call, because we have the National Human Trafficking Hotline, then we have some states that have their own hotline numbers. If you can't Google the hotline fast enough, just call 911. It is a crime in progress. Call a 911. Be a good witness. Be able to describe what this person looks like. Be able to describe the vehicle. Maybe get a license plate. Describe tattoos. Describe if they're traveling with other people. Because, like I said, these pimps are partnering up and they're doing counter surveillance for each other. Be able to give us last known direction of travel. Provide your information so that we can contact you in case you saw something else that you forgot to tell us. It's not like we have to show up at your house in a police car or anything for the neighbors to see. We can call you on the phone, but please provide your information so that we can contact you in case there's more that we want to know. And then understand that if you are going to report these things, you might be called to testify as a witness. And I don't know if you've Googled yourself lately, but everything about us is on the internet. And it's really important that we protect our information, because just like a pimp from prison has threatened me, where he did a public records request for my personnel file, trying to learn information about me. I don't know what his intention was. For sure, a trafficker is going to try and intimidate anyone who's going to testify against him, including the person that's the reporting party, which would be you. And so protect your information. I subscribe to an entity called deleteme.com, and I have a discount code, a chance for awareness. And deleteme.com spends time every month deleting my information off the internet, my home address, my child's name, those kind of things. And it's something you could do, but the next month your information gets sold again. So then you're going to have to do it the next month and the next month. And it's something that I pay Delete Me to do for me. And that is something that I highly suggest people look into to pull your personal information off the internet. But that is a long story to answer your question. Yes.
So does that mean, are you saying that not even having Instagram and Facebook accounts?
As far as open to the public, where it's not set to private, it is unsafe to have it open to the public, yes. Because you can get messages from strangers all day long. And especially if you're a kid that is not knowledgeable about creepers coming into their private messages and engaging with them, that is why I wrote my book, because I want to arm parents with information about talking to them, uh, talking to them about creepers who would come into their private messages and ask personal questions about them, like where do they go to school, where do their parents work, how old are their siblings, how old they are, what's your last name, personal information. Then I also talk about in the book traffickers, predators, sex buyers, even all of these strangers will also try and trick them to another platform like Snapchat because they think Snapchat disappears. Law enforcement can still get stuff that's deleted or disappeared on Snapchat, by the way. But also the fact that they might speak in some kind of code, like, hey, put this emoji in the chat if your mom walks in, or encouraging them to keep this whole conversation and their relationship and friendship a secret from their parents. All of those kind of things. If you're talking to your kid about all that happening, it is not if, but when it happens, because it's going to happen, period. They're going to recognize, wait a minute, my mom told me about this. My mom told me about someone doing that. This is a creeper. And they're going to stop talking to that person, and then they're going to come tell mom about it. That's my whole goal with my book, talk to them. And that's what I try and describe to parents that is going on and in real life. And then I just had it translated in Spanish because I feel that it's a vulnerability for parents that don't speak English as their first language, where this boyfriend shows up and talking to their daughter, and then all of a sudden their daughter is spending more time with this person and they're not understanding what's going on, and then they run away. And or how did they meet them in the first place? So I feel it's very important for this to be information, critical information in any language I can get it translated into, and I just chose Spanish first, and I'll work on other languages for sure.
Your book, Talk to Them, helps parents navigate the digital age. What are some warning signs parents should watch for online? We kind of already talked about. Is there more that you wanted to add to that?
Yes, so there are platforms that I would highly recommend. One that I am partnering with right now, it's called Kovo Home, and they actually have a firewall type of device that you can purchase for your home that will block any of these types of things that are going on with the games, and even if you're using the Wi-Fi at home on the internet or even on your computer, you're accessing some pornography website by accident or on purpose because your friends are hanging out and the kids are in the room unattended and they're on the computer. This device blocks all of that. And that is super important to have home protection as well as other entities like Bark Technologies and Gab Wireless, GABB, Gab Wireless. If you've ever heard of those two companies, they have created cell phones that look like an iPhone or a touchscreen phone. So if you have to give your 8-year-old a phone because you get home after they do, and they come home on the bus before you do, and you want them to have a phone, or their kids are getting bullied in class because all the other 7-year-olds have a phone, you can get them a phone that looks like the other phones, but it has no internet access at all. Because if that's your reason that you want your kid to have a phone, they don't need the internet also. And having the parental controls and all the things and the devices that don't have the internet, those two companies do a great job at doing those things. And then more than that, both those companies have blog articles where they spend time investing in researching the new latest and greatest app. Like a few years ago, the schools were encouraging parents to download the Saturn app. And the Saturn app was, intended for the teacher and the kids to communicate with each other. And it was supposed to be school stuff, homework, announcements about school events, blah, blah, blah. But there was no research done on the part of the schools where could a predator create a profile and act like a peer, another 8-year-old in the class, and then they have a full pool of kids that they can start engaging with through this Saturn app. And that's what Bark and Gab Wireless do. They have these articles where they do the work to research these apps so that parents can go to one place and put in the name of the app that the school is telling them to download, or this kid is coming up to them and saying, I want to play this game, Mom, can I download this game? They can check it on the platforms and see what Bark and Gab say about the danger level of these apps and the ability for a predator to use them as well. And then you can make an informed decision on, you know what? No, you can't have that app. My house, my rules. You can't have that app because of this, and explain to them this is dangerous. This is not any protections here, and I don't want these things to happen. And I think what we need to definitely recognize, and why I wrote the book, and what's important about the book is we think this is going to happen when they're teenagers, when it's later on in life. We don't have to worry about it now when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. But I would argue that you do need to worry about it now, because the national average age of entry into sex trafficking when I first started investigating this crime was 15 years old. Today, the national age is 13. And recently, we've rescued a couple of 12 and 11-year-olds out on the streets doing trafficking, being trafficked. And so that means that we need to have parents talk to their kids about all this earlier than you would think, 8, 9, 10 years old. And how do you have those difficult conversations? So that is how, and that's what the book is the how to have the difficult conversation, because it's needed and critical to have earlier than you would think.
Yeah, that's so important and amazing that you wrote that book. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I feel bad because I have responded to so many homes and sat on the couch with parents who are reporting this thing, this awful thing that already happened. And I would much rather not meet you that way or at all and have the thing never happen. And so that's the whole premise behind the book is law enforcement can't do it all. The school isn't going to do it for you. You need to start arming yourself with the information and learn it earlier than you think. And then that way you'll know and how to have that conversation, so that you can not ever have this happen in the first place.
Wow. I mean, so many hard conversations that we have to have with our kids, and now adding that, that's just crazy. So, if you could leave our listeners with one action step they can take today to protect children and help in this fight, what would it be? And I think we also went over it as well. But is there anything else that you would want to add?
Yeah, I think talking to your kids, making yourself aware of this problem and how it's happening for real, not just what TikTok influencers and Instagram reels show you. And then also knowing how and when to report. The worst thing I've experienced, I would say, is, and it's happened more than once, a victim sitting across the table from me describing a violent incident that happened to them. And I asked if it was witnessed by anyone. And they say, yeah, it was in broad daylight at the bus stop, and people were standing there, and no one called. And that is heartbreaking to me that no one would even call to get this person help. So make the call. Please report. You're not bothering us. You are doing something to help someone else. And I don't know where we went away from that, but we need to get back to helping others.
Yeah, it seems people want to be in people's business, but then they just don't want to help, but they want to hear all about it. But also, I wanted to go back to the TikTokers and influencers who are being vigilantes. I've never heard of that either. So that's just crazy to me that people are doing this.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, just like on TV, when you're watching a TV series, a lot of people watch the ones that are about human trafficking. It's the buzzword right now, and it's a buzzword because of movies like Sound of Freedom, and it's a good thing. But it's also where people are wanting to jump on a bandwagon of some kind or a trend, and it's unfortunate because it's not only, like I said, something we can't help prosecute because it's not done right, because we have certain rules of evidence and things that we have to follow the rules. It's impersonating a police officer, and you could be also held accountable and in trouble for that. And it's causing a situation where, as a female undercover, my job is now harder because I'm targeting these people who are already hinked up because they may have been contacted by an influencer before and they don't want that to happen again. So they take steps, which makes my job even harder. So, very important that that stops.
Do you see that stopping?
I don't, because no one else is telling them all the things that are negative about it.
Wow. Well, hopefully they might run across mine. But also, you find that people just don't care. Oh, well, I want the views, or something, which is
Yes.
hurting everyone else. So that's so unfortunate. So usually we finish with in the black is coming from the red, the negative financial term, and then going into the black, the positive, financially, mentally, spiritually, physically, all the things in life. I'm not sure how to apply this, but I'm thinking seeing either in trafficking how it's gone from the red to the black, the improvements that law enforcement has made in the years, or I'll just let you take it away.
Yeah, I think we are doing better. I mean, I come from a unique perspective of I remember when we were only doing this to now we're doing this, and so much more. But I don't know that we're there yet as far as everything that could be done. Um, for example, we don't have placement really for boys or kids in transition as far as, victims that come out of the life, or even we're not getting those kind of cases as much where we know what's going on. We just don't have those individuals coming forward because they don't trust the police or other dynamics going on. So we're definitely not there. We have more work to do, but I'm happy that we have been changing our response to this issue and that we are on a path to better.
Lastly, where can our listeners find your discounts, your website? How can people help? Everything.
Yeah, so I have my website, achanceforawareness.com, where I have information, resources. I have a sex trafficking indicators list that people can download to recognize trafficking. We've talked about some of the things, but there's a whole bunch of things that people can recognize. I have a decoding emojis list where I've kind of defined what certain emojis actually could be meaning when you see that in a child's conversation. I have a quiz that you can test yourself on your knowledge of human trafficking. Like I said, I do have my online courses. I have what I call the Power of Awareness course, which is an actual human trafficking course. I just created a modern day situational awareness course, and then I have a digital literacy for parents and online safety course. Um, and then, as far as my other platforms, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is basically a chance for awareness, but there's a underscore in between each word. And then LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. That's a pretty good platform for me. I have a law enforcement presence there, big law enforcement presence. And then basically, I am available to do presentations and do keynote speaking and things to educate. If you have businesses that are on your platform that listen, that want to educate their employees, want to create policies and consequences for individuals who participate in this activity, I would be happy to come train your employees. So, yeah.
I do have a question to that.
Mhm.
Is this on your own time and not through law enforcement? And what does law enforcement think about this?
Yeah, so this is definitely on my own time. I retired from Phoenix Police Department in October 2021, and that's like a year later, because I'm still passionate about this, I created my own business. So that's what I've got going on here.
And you're still training the ladies to do this. Is that through your own business or is that through the police department?
Oh yeah, no, that's through my own business. Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. You're just an amazing person.
Ah,
So you didn't retire, you're just continuing on. How long do you think, you're gonna probably work until the rest of your days
I don't
doing
know,
this?
but I'm having a lot of fun right now, and I think it's super important. So,
Yeah.
there's things that I've experienced that I want to share and help law enforcement know about, because there's some agencies out there that don't have undercover units, and they're just barely creating them. So, getting some good training from someone who's actually been, sitting on the couch next to a buyer trying to touch them inappropriately, coming from someone who's actually done it is powerful.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to share that I didn't get to ask or anything that you'd wanna add to this?
No, I think that we pretty much covered everything. I just appreciate you letting me have another opportunity to share information about this critical topic on your platform. So I'm very happy to have done this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. If something you heard today moved you, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Black Passion Project for more behind the scenes and guest spotlights. And remember, no matter where you've been, you're not behind. You're becoming. Stay in the black.